Greetings everyone. I am Dr. Gauri Medkar, Professor and Consultant Pathology. Welcome to my YouTube channel PathQuest. On this channel, I will be posting quality educational videos related to pathology. The present video deals with some of the factors related to cell injury. So let's In this video, I will be discussing about normal cell structure and function, definition of cell injury, process and types or classification of cell injury, etiology or causes of cell injury, factors influencing cell injury. To understand cell injury, we must first understand structure and function of human cell. So in this 3D picture, we can see there are two parts in the cell. One is the outer part, which is made up of cytoplasmic membrane with microvilli, and the inner part. The inner part is further divided into two parts, that is cytoplasm and the nucleus. The cytoplasm has various cell organelle. The cell organelle are nothing but the normal small organs of the cell which are responsible for different functions of the cell. So, the cytoplasm contains various cell organelle like mitochondria, smooth endoplasmic reticulum, lysosomes, ribosomes, Golgi apparatus, centrioles, rough endoplasmic reticulum. As we go further inside, we can see the nucleus, and inside the nucleus there is nucleolus. So let's see what are the functions of the different components of the. If we start from inside, in the innermost part is the nucleus with nucleolus. The nucleus is protected by nuclear envelope. The nucleus contains DNA with associated proteins, and it is mainly responsible for carrying information or codes for normal functioning of the cell. The nucleolus is a condensed region where ribosomes are formed. So what is the role of these ribosomes? They are present on the rough endoplasmic reticulum. So endoplasmic reticulum is of two types, rough endoplasmic reticulum and smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Rough endoplasmic reticulum has ribosomes on its surface, and it is mainly responsible for various synthesis of various secretory and membrane proteins. Smooth endoplasmic reticulum is devoid of ribosomes, and it is mainly responsible for synthesis of lipids. The structure or infrastructure of the cell is maintained by cytoskeleton, which is made up of microtubules, centrosomes, intermediate filaments, and microfilaments. Other structures which are present in the cytoplasm include lysosomes, which carry inactive enzymes. When the lysosome is activated, the enzymes are activated and they perform the function of digestion of food and other waste material. The other structure present is Golgi apparatus, which is responsible for modification of proteins so that they will be functional. Mitochondria is also called as powerhouse of the cell because it is responsible for generation of energy in the form of ATP for functioning of the cell. The cell is protected by plasma membrane, which is responsible for protecting or maintaining the milieu interior of the cell and also maintaining the electrolyte balance. So let's just quickly the functions of different components of the cell. Cytoplasmic membrane is responsible for maintaining milieu interior of the cell and maintaining electrolyte balance. Mitochondria are responsible for ATP generation. Endoplasmic reticulum is mainly responsible for protein synthesis with the help of ribosomes, whereas smooth endoplasmic reticulum is responsible for lipid synthesis. Lysosomes carry various enzymes for digestion. Nucleus carries instructions for protein synthesis, and nucleolus is mainly associated with synthesis of ribosomes, which ultimately result in protein synthesis. As we understand the normal structure and function of the cell, let's move forward. Injury. So, how will we define cell injury? Cell injury is defined as effect of various stresses due to etiologic agents a cell encounters, resulting in changes in its internal and external environment. Whenever we are defining a condition, we must first understand the important words or frames or vocabulary used in that definition. So, what are the important words in the definition of cell injury? These include effects of variety of stresses and etiologic agents resulting in changes in internal and external environment of the cell. So, cell injury is nothing but the changes which occur in the cell because of variety of stresses. What are these variety of stresses? So, these include when the cell exceeds its limits of adaptive responses. So when the cell is exposed to a stress, it will first try to adapt itself. But if the adaptive limits are crossed, then it will result in cell injury. Other include if the cells are exposed to damaging insults, if the cell is deprived of critical nutrients which are responsible or which are required for maintaining normal cell structure and function, or if the cell is compromised by mutations that affect essential cellular functions. So if there are mutations which are causing severe damage to the nucleus or nucleolus, it will result in cell injury. So all these consequences result in a sequence of events which is called as cell injury. So let's again revise. Cell injury is defined as effect of variety of stresses due to etiologic agents a cell encounters resulting in changes in its internal and external environment. Let's see the process of cell injury in detail. A normal cell is in a status of homeostasis. That means it is repeatedly doing the same normal function over and over again. What is the exact meaning of homeostasis? Homeostasis is derived from Greek words homos and stasis. Homos means similar and stasis means standing still. So the cell which is in a similar state repeatedly is in a state of homeostasis. This term was coined by Walter Bradford Cannon in 1926. Now, when the normal cell is exposed to certain change, this change can be in the form of stress. So, when a cell is exposed to a stress, or when there is increased demand of function from the cell, or when there is demand of growth from the cell is exposed to changes. And when the cell is exposed to this kind of stress, it will try to adapt itself. and it will result in cellular adaptation. If the cell is exposed to injurious stimulus, so in this, the cell is exposed to stress or increased demand. But if the cell is exposed to injurious stimulus, then it will result in cell injury. So the outcome of injurious stimulus can be cell injury or cell death. So we can compare adaptation to and the injurious exposure to injurious stimulus to human body. If we are exposed to stress, like stress of exam, in the exam we are expected to study more, so we will try to adapt ourselves. But if we experience a fall, then that is an injurious stimulus and it is going to result in some damage or injury to the body. So, stress or increased demand will result in cellular adaptation, and exposure to injurious stimulus will result in either cell injury or cell death. Let's see what will cause cell injury and what death. So we have seen this, a normal cell exposed to stress results in adaptation, and the cell which is exposed to injurious stimulus will result in cell injury or cell death. So what will determine whether the outcome will be just injury or the death of the cell? If the injurious stimulus is mild or transient, it will result in reversible cell injury. That means there is a hope, there is a possibility that the cell can revert back to its normal structure or function once the injurious stimulus is removed. But if the cell is exposed to injurious stimulus, which is severe and progressive, then it will result in cell injury which is irreversible. That means the cell will not be able to revert back to its normal structure or function even if the injurious stimulus is removed. This will ultimately result in death of the cell. So, mild and transient injurious stimulus will result in reversible cell injury, and severe or progressive injurious stimulus will result in irreversible cell injury and cell death. Cell death can be of two types depending upon the mechanism which is used for cell death. So if it is a programmed or organized cell death, it is called as apoptosis. And if it is unprogrammed cell death, it is called as necrosis. So apoptosis can be likened to suicide, which is organized or programmed, and necrosis can be likened to accident, which is disorganized or spontaneous. Now, the cell injury can occur due to another mechanism. When the cell is exposed to stress or increased demand, it will try to adapt. But if the stress or increased demand is very high, sometimes the cell may not be able to adapt itself. And this inability to adapt will also result in cell injury. So, cell injury can occur due to injurious stimulus which is mild or transient, injurious stimulus which is severe or progressive, and inability of the cell to adapt to increased stress. Let's move on to knowing the causes of cell injury. In pathology, the synonym for cause is etiology. So etiology are the factors which are responsible for particular condition or for particular disease. So etiological factors or causative factors of cell injury can be classified into two types: the genetic causes and the acquired causes. The genetic causes are the factors which cause damage to the genetic material mainly present in the nucleus. So these include developmental defects like error in morphogenesis. So these mainly occur during fetal life. Cytogenetic defects, which are chromosomal abnormalities, single gene defects, which are also called as Mendelian disorders, and multifactorial inheritance disorders. Acquired causes include hypoxia, ischemia, physical injury, chemical agents and drugs, microbial agents, immunologic agents, nutritional derangements, aging. Aging is responsible for cell injury because of accumulation of oxidative stress. Psychological causes, iatrogenic cause factors, and idiopathic factors. Let's understand these two terms here. Iatrogenic factors are the factors related to treatment of any condition. So these are mainly related to side effects of the treatment. Idiopathic diseases are the conditions where the exact cause of the condition cannot be found out. Acquired causes in further detail. So hypoxia is a condition where there is decreased supply of oxygen to the tissues. There are various factors which can cause decreased supply to the oxygen to the tissues. So these include anemia, respiratory diseases, and cardiovascular diseases. Anemia is a condition where there is decreased oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. This can be because of decreased hemoglobin concentration of the blood. Hemoglobin is a molecule which is mainly responsible for carrying oxygen to various tissues and organs. Respiratory diseases can also result in hypoxia because lungs are the primary organs where oxygenation of the blood occurs. Cardiovascular system is responsible for supplying oxygenated blood and removing deoxygenated waste from the tissues. So cardiovascular diseases will also result in tissue hypoxia. Ischemia is a condition where there is decreased blood supply to the tissues. So ischemia will ultimately result in tissue hypoxia and damage to the cells resulting in cell injury. Ischemia is mainly caused due to blockage of blood vessels, especially the arteries. Physical agents like mechanical trauma, heat, radiation can also cause damage to the cells. Chemicals and drugs are there are numerous chemicals and drugs which can cause damage to the tissues. Examples include carbon tetrachloride, excessive alcohol consumption, cyanide, arsenic, etc. Infective agents like bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungi will result in cell injury. Immunologic agents like hypersensitivity reactions. So immunity is there to protect human body from various foreign agents and microbial agents. But when the immune system is excessively activated, it causes damage to the normal host cells also, resulting in hypersensitivity reactions and cell injury. Nutritional deficiencies like proteins, vitamin, mineral deficiency will also result in cell injury because of decreased ATP synthesis, and also the cell will be deprived of essential nutrients and will result in damage to the cell. So these are physiological factors responsible for cell injury. Now, what are the factors which will ultimately decide the degree of damage caused to the cell and the final outcome of the cell injury? There are various factors which are related to the etiological agent or the causative agent, and the factors related to the cell to which uh, the causative agent is causing damage. So, the first factor is type, duration, and severity of injurious agent. So, whether the injurious agent or the causative factor, whether it is living or non-living. So, living include infectious agents or microbes like bacteria, viruses, fungi. Non-living agents include mechanical agents, physical trauma, radiations, chemical agents, drugs, etc. Many a times, the living agents like microbes can cause more damage because they can multiply and expand the degree of damage. Virulence of the organism in microbes will also determine the degree of damage caused to the tissue. Dose or load of the organism. How much is the dose of the organism to which the host is exposed will also determine degree of damage. The next factor which is responsible or which will determine the degree of damage is the factor related to the target cell. So the type, the status and adaptability of the target cell will determine the degree of damage. So if we compare parenchymal cells and the interstitial cells or interstitial tissue, parenchymal cells are more sensitive to any kind of damage as compared to interstitial tissue like fibroblast or collagen. In the interstitial tissue also, some of the interstitial tissue are more sensitive to damage. The example is the skeletal muscle and cardiac muscle. If the skeletal muscle and cardiac muscle both are exposed to similar amount of hypoxia, the cardiac muscle will be damaged more as compared to skeletal muscle. So the cardiac muscle is more sensitive to hypoxic injury as compared to the skeletal muscle. So in this video, we have seen normal structure and function of the human cell, definition of cell injury, mechanisms or types of cell injury, various causative factors of cell injury, and the factors which determine the degree of damage caused by cell injury. Thank you. Please subscribe to my channel for more videos. Thank you.